Fallout 76 has been constantly updating, although with extremely minor updates. It's receiving polish and fixes one would expect from a baseline product. In other words, Fallout 76 has incurred a large debt in releasing in the substandard state it did, and it's working its way out of that hole through refinements to the game's systems and bug fixes. In short, it's on its way to becoming what we'd expect from the game that we purchased, as far as that goes, being a live service game. However, to anyone who's completed the game's primary progression path, their game's already over. The Scorched Beast Queens are on farm, they blueprinted their ideal camp loadout, and they've already obtained the best weapons several times over, and they have a massive surplus of the game's currency, caps. It's obvious the game was rushed out to market, and the game's content has been burned through by all of the serious players. When players don't have anything to do, they quit. And when players quit, they are not spending money to buy the cosmetic microtransactions. Thus, the game's ongoing profits suffer. And when profits suffer, they can no longer afford the development staff and have to cut people's hours, provided the people are hourly, or axe people's positions entirely if they're paid salary. I can't tell you if anyone's been laid off or not. I'm just telling you how a development spiral like this usually occurs in game studios. Now, Bethesda Game Studios Austin, while legally the same company as Bethesda Game Studios and even Bethesda Softworks, is, for all intents and purposes, a different entity in the physical world. They were the ones who Bethesda Game Studios proper threw the landscape and saddled on their backs the responsibility of making Fallout 76 an ongoing success. And there's a saying in business, the greater feeds the lesser. When you have a studio that is not turning a significant profit, or is turning what's called declining profit, but you still have people on payroll, you can continue to operate it at a loss or diminishing returns, knowing that your success in other parts of the company can cover its costs. The only reason you do this, however, is because either you're offering a service, something that translates to your company other than direct profit, like goodwill, or far more likely, the promise of larger profits down the road. So they're developing dungeons and other content, but how can they justify the salaries of these people if they're not going to turn a profit? Fallout 76 isn't exactly flying off the shelves anymore. In fact, it wasn't massively selling to begin with. The answer is, of course, the microtransaction store. With the announcement of repair kits that are going to be sellable in the store, this is Fallout 76's first step into the realm of selling power. Something free-to-play games, at least bad free-to-play games, tend to do. Now, I know a lot of people are looking at repair kits and thinking, selling power? Can repairing your gear really be considered selling power? And you'd be right to think that. That's why I said they're stepping into the realm of. They are testing the waters. They need to start making more money now to justify the salaries of the developers who are currently working on it. Obviously, when the game is Steam ready, they will have an influx of new players. Now, I said that they'll be moving to Steam eventually. I said this before the game even came out, because I recognized the pattern of Fallout Shelter and Elder Scrolls Legends. This second release will give them a whole new set of players, and they'll want to have tested the new monetization system thoroughly to make sure that the Steam launch isn't ruined by it. If they need to do any backtracking, they'll probably do that before the Steam release. That all said, here's how I see things going moving forward. And I could be wrong, of course, but I think they will, if they do not hit any major opposition with these repair kits, start selling more powerful things, as well as weapon skins, possibly item bundles. Here's a potential advertisement. Just had your items lost in survival mode? You can buy some for a few atoms right here. They'll probably start selling camp and cache upgrades as well. Cache being the place where you store your goods. You only have one container in your settlement, your camp, and I assume that you're going to pay to upgrade that. In the future, anyway. There are many ways that they can take this monetization, and in the next couple major updates, we'll probably see this come together. After the first major content expansion is out anyway, so that they can say, well, we did this for free, before dropping more monetization. And you know that little clock that's on top of outfits where it says, well, there's the time left before this deal ends? That will probably intensify leading up to the Steam release. They are really counting on their roadmap, combined with having players from the Steam release, to get players into the game in order to keep it being played. However, I don't believe this is the proper way to go about things. I'm not talking about the monetization system, but rather their roadmap. First and foremost, I think they need to split their focus, which I know sounds insane, but not only do they need large chunks of content, aka the big releases that they're promising, but they need minor chunks of content as well. There needs to be a caps sink, because in-game players have accumulated massive amounts of caps. There needs to be something that's very, very expensive, but is virtually worthless in terms of game balance. For example, very, very prestigious turret skins or gun skins, things that you would buy for a ludicrous amount of caps. Something that is akin to World of Warcraft special mounts that come out every expansion and cost a fortune. You see, there's something about virtual economies, and that's you're creating resources. You're not gathering resources, you're generating them out of thin air using your time. You're adding them to the system. So you need to have a system that incentivizes the removal of those resources, that weeds them out as they come in. Otherwise, they accumulate to impossibly large levels and caps become worthless. The next thing they need are community challenges. Things that should not be able to be accomplished in a single day, but rather have to be worked on for a week or more. The reward for participating in these should be small, something like a golden statue, something you can place in your camp with no resource costs. So, for every one of these events you've completed, you can have a statue and you don't have to worry about, well, this statue's taking up capacity on your camp. It would be free to place one of those. And the idea is there'd be a new event happening every 3 weeks or every month or so. And if you missed an event, you'd look at a player's camp where they have all the trophies, and it's a point of pride that they did these things and you have not. It keeps the players engaged because they want all the trophies. Now, every event should accumulate into a major boss battle or some kind of event that, if you miss, you will hear stories about other players telling you how cool it was. And from then on, you'll keep your eyes on the game because you don't want to miss the next one. This is a player retention mechanism, and it is an effective one. Small things like that need to be done between large expansions like, say, Vault raids that they have on their roadmap. I can guarantee you that every time you release a major content expansion, people will come back to the game. But every time you do, less people will come back than the previous content expansion. The trick is to retain players between those expansions. Because Bethesda Game Studios Austin or otherwise have zero experience running a live service, and ZeniMax doesn't have experience running something with such limited content, none of these people have any idea how to retain a player base within a sandbox that small. The result is the player base as it currently is has shrunk to a fraction of its former self. I suspect that it's not their fault either, specifically Austin. I suspect that when ZeniMax scrapped Battlecry and integrated them as the live service division of Bethesda, that ZeniMax already considered all of Battlecry to be a debt, and that they're looking to recoup that investment. Fallout 76 was a Fallout 4 multiplayer mode they cobbled together, and after Bethesda Game Studios proper built the landscape, they tossed it over to Austin branch, expecting Austin to earn their keep. That's what I think happened. No proof, just what I think. And when you compare it to the rushed world and the game's systems being a byproduct of Fallout 4, you figure that ZeniMax as a whole invested very, very little money into Fallout 76. making the sales it did get a financial success. The problem is that a momentary success does not pay people's salaries in perpetuity. The pay-to-win elements that are eking their way into the atomic shop, starting with repair kits, and you can argue they're not pay-to-win or not, there's room for debate. The fact is that this is the start of them selling power, them selling game-altering things that are not just cosmetic. They wouldn't need to be selling power or selling anything in-game if they had retained their player base well enough. And sadly, at the current rate of their design directions, they will not be able to retain a player base once they relaunch via Steam. If the Steam relaunch is not accompanied by various gameplay systems to keep people engaged, more than just a new dungeon, then they'll be back to where they were really quick. There are countless examples of games on Steam, games that originally, before they got onto Steam, they had a dwindling player base. They got onto Steam, which revitalized their player base, and they lost that player base all over again. If this happens, their only recourse will be to go free to play as a third way of getting players, the first being their original release, then the Steam release, then the free-to-play launch. They'll be backed into a corner after that, with no way to bring new players in, at which point they'll have to start laying people off and putting the game into maintenance mode. For those of you who don't know what maintenance mode is, that's when you stop developing new content for a live service game, and you start downsizing the game to around, roughly, it depends on the game, but let's just say in this case, 2 people. One person maintaining the servers, and another person making microtransaction content for the game's store, in order to keep selling, in order to keep paying the 2 people's salaries. If the game fails to adapt, fails to build recurrent gameplay opportunities to keep players engaged in the game will have deserved its final death. And I never relished the idea of someone losing their job, but really, Fallout 76 has been mismanaged from the start. And this is a notice to Fallout 76 and Bethesda Game Studios Austin that you really have to change the way you're doing things if you want to have jobs moving forward, unless you have some kind of secret plan you haven't disclosed to us. Because based on your roadmap, things aren't looking good, but either way, time will tell. I could be wrong, and if I'm wrong, I will be happy, because I don't want to see people lose their jobs. I do not want to see the game crash and burn. So if I'm wrong, I'll be happy. But thank you all for watching. Now, what is your take on Fallout 76's monetization changes? Do you think they're on the tip of the iceberg due to desperation, or do you think they're going to backtrack and not sell any in-game items? They're just going to go back to cosmetics. I'm curious to see how the Fallout 76 developers can save themselves, if they can save themselves. Will they do it by doing what I said, or will they do various other things I didn't mention? There's a world of possibilities in game development. And let's just hope there's someone out there smarter than I am, because I'm not nearly as smart as I pretend to be. And let's hope that someone on their team just hasn't been given a chance to shine yet, and they're gonna wow us all with something amazing. Somehow, though, I doubt it. You all have a good one now.